This is a question that comes from last week's message because we talked about intimacy and marriage, and the question is, what sexual activities are across the line for couples? Well, let me define first of all, what are you calling a couple? If the couple, by what you mean in couple, is you're saying a marriage, two people, husband and wife, man and woman, together in a covenant marriage, then what's across the line sexually? Here's the rule that I use for couples. First of all, sex doesn't have to be boring if you're a Christian. That's number one. I think that's real important. It ought to be exciting. Sex is a gift from God. In the context of marriage, it's a cool and awesome thing. It ought to be something celebrated. The marriage bed is hugely important. Our society and our community is sexually perverse, and it's distorted what God gave us as a gift. But we should be enjoying sexual intimacy in our marriages. What's across the line? Two-prong rule. All right, just mark this down. Two-prong rule. It's across the line if it violates God's word. For instance, there's couples today that I've met with and counseled with that have said, hey, we like to use pornography to spice up our sex life. I mean, it's not really porn. It's adult content that uses. Well, that's across the line. The images and the pictures, the production of that, the use of that is all completely against God's word. That is immoral, and you don't need to do that. And by the way, you're opening the door of your marriage up to huge problems. I had a couple that actually, we met in counseling. They argued and fought with me about how they used pornography to enhance their marriage. It was just a short time later that she has an affair on her husband, and their marriage ended. That's what you're opening your marriage up to when you offer things like that. So the first prong is you can do anything you want to as long as it does not violate the standards set forth in God's word. That's number one. Number two, and this is not about God's word, but this is about loving your mate. It cannot demean your husband or your wife. Guys, oftentimes the agenda in the bedroom for the man is way different than it is for the woman. We just have different ideas about things. And so in that reality, you need to talk to your mate. You need to have these conversations. I know some couples, they don't like it. We don't talk about it. We just do it. Well, no. Talk about it. Ask, say, hey, is that across the line? Can we spice it up? Some people are too conservative in the bedroom when it comes to Christian marriage. I mean, quite honestly, you ought to spice it up. You ought to do something out of the ordinary. You ought to try something that makes things better, makes things exciting. If you've been in marriage for a while, sometimes it can get boring sexually. Don't do that. But don't do the things that demean your mate, and definitely don't do the things that violate God's word. At either one of those will literally dismantle your marriage. Sex is an adhesive. That's what it is. It glues people together. In fact, the very first thing after a couple comes together is they consummate their marriage, which glues them together. And God's glue in marriage, in sex and intimacy, was intended to glue a couple together for a lifetime. Okay? So it has great sticking properties. And so to not have that sexual intimacy is weakening some of the glue that should be holding you together. And I know we live in a very feminine society that says, he shouldn't want sex all the time. Listen, just newsflash. Ladies, guys are wired differently than you, all right? They just are. And guys, newsflash, ladies are wired differently than you. Men, women don't have your sex drive. That's just the truth. If you've got a wife that does, hey, thank God, celebrate, give God worship, all right? Now, but if you don't, just join the rest of us, all right? But ladies, let me just tell you this. Your husband is not being shallow to desire physical intimacy with you. And to not want it to be a boring, experience, that's okay. I mean, some of you ladies, you go to bed, you got the curlers in, you got the old 3X t-shirt on that's threadbare. Listen, nobody wants to make love to Granny Clampett, all right? Nobody. So spice it up, dress it up, visit Victoria's Secret or something, and amp it up. What is acceptable? Anything that does not violate God's word and does not demean your mate. All right, there's our answers. And next week I'll try to jump on this a little bit earlier. God bless you guys. I hope things go well for you.